Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're getting into something that trips a lot of people up. It's this idea that just earning more money, like hitting that six-figure mark, will somehow fix all your financial stress. But have you ever stopped to think that actually a good chunk of people making over $100,000 a year are still basically living paycheck to paycheck? It's kind of a shocking thought, isn't it?
It really is, and it points to something deeper. It's not just about the income level. And then you've got these foundational beliefs we all carry around about money.
Oh yeah, like the big one owning a house.
Yeah.
The investment, the ultimate sign you've made it.
Exactly, that particular dream. But what if that very belief, that house dogma, is actually what's holding you back? What if it's keeping you from the life you actually truly want?
It's a challenging idea.
It is, and the data backs it up, It's quite startling, actually. Less than 1% of people, truly less than 1%, have real clarity on what their personal rich life even looks like.
And you don't just mean vague stuff like freedom, right?
No, not at all. Not, oh, I want freedom or I want to do what I want. I mean, like the nitty-gritty details. What does that actually look like day to day? What does it feel like? What aligns with your core values? So our mission here in this deep dive is really to unpack some powerful insights from a leading voice in personal finance. We want to shine a light on these hidden truths about wealth, about spending, and really get to the heart of what it means to live richly.
Yeah, challenge some of those assumptions we all just kind of accept.
Precisely. Challenge them and then give you practical, actionable things you can actually do to start building that life on your own terms.
Okay, so let's dive in. We're going to really explore how you build real, lasting wealth. And maybe spoiler alert, it's not always glamorous.
Definitely not always glamorous. It's often about disciplined, low-cost, long-term investing, the kind people sometimes call, watching paint dry.
Right. And we'll contrast that with the stuff that seems more exciting, the riskier short-term things that promise the moon, but often, don't deliver.
Yeah, the quick fixes that rarely are. But look, this isn't just a numbers game. That's crucial. We need to get into how our financial decisions are all tangled up with our psychology, our values, even our relationships.
So it's about defining what abundance really means for you, which might include freedom, sure, but also health, good relationships.
Exactly. It's a holistic view. Not just piling up money for the sake of it, but consciously living richly, starting now and continuing on.
Okay, so where do we start with redefining this rich life? If it's not just a number, what is it?
Well, fundamentally, it's about intentional spending. It's this conscious process, right? Making sure your money aligns with your unique personal values. It's about living vibrantly today, not just deferring all joy to some distant future, but also building for that future.
So freedom, health, relationships, these are the real currencies.
In many ways, yes. Accumulating wealth without that purpose, it often feels empty. You hear people say they want freedom, maybe do what I want when I want. Sounds great.
But then you look at their actual finances.
Exactly. You peek behind the curtain, look at their bank statements, their debt load, their monthly bills, and you see this huge gap, a chasm between what they say they want and what their money is actually doing.
That's that clarity gap you mentioned. It's wild that less than 1% of people can really paint a detailed picture of their ideal life.
It is wild. Ask someone, and you mostly get those generics. Freedom, happiness, doing what I want. Okay, what does that mean?
Right. Does freedom mean, like, flying business class whenever you travel internationally, maybe 6 weeks a year?
Or maybe it means being able to drop everything and visit family overseas if something comes up. Or taking a 3-month sabbatical every 5 years.
Or is it simpler? Like going to your favorite restaurant and ordering whatever you want without even looking at the price column.
Or having the financial cushion to say yes to a passion project, even if it doesn't pay much initially. See, these are specific.
Without that kind of detail, that vivid picture, it's almost impossible to steer your money effectively, isn't it?
It's exactly like setting off on a road trip with no map, just sort of hoping you end up somewhere nice. Good luck with that.
Yeah. And that lack of vision, it fuels that disconnect you talked about, the gap between intention and action.
It really does. People genuinely want freedom, but their choices often lock them down. That huge 30-year mortgage, right? Or significant student debt payments, those big car loans.
They become like anchors.
Invisible chains, really. They stop you from taking that spontaneous trip or making a career change you're dreaming about or moving cities for a great opportunity. It creates this tension.
So that moment of looking at your spending versus your stated desires, that's crucial.
It's a huge moment for self-reflection. You have to ask, am I really spending on what I love? on what moves me closer to my definition of a rich life.
Or am I just following a script, doing what I think I should be doing financially?
Exactly. Am I living someone else's financial script?
Which brings us to a really interesting concept. You mentioned money dials, this idea of intentional spending. Can you unpack that a bit?
Yeah, I love this concept. It's so liberating. It's absolutely not about being frugal about everything, cutting coupons for toothpaste. No. It's about choosing to spend, like extravagantly, on the few things you truly deeply love, the things that genuinely bring you joy and align with your values.
Okay, so you identify what really matters to you.
Right. And then, for everything else, the stuff you just don't care much about, you cut costs mercilessly, without guilt.
So it's that contrast, that duality.
That's at the key. That's what shows real intentionality. The source we're drawing from gives a great example from his own life. He loves travel, right? So he
Right.
spends a lot on nice hotels when he travels for months at a time. That's a huge money dial for him.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
he drives a car that's nearly 20 years old because a fancy car just doesn't matter to him. It's not one of his dials.
So it's not about being cheap, it's about being deliberate, aligning spending with personal value.
Perfectly put. And that naturally leads into thinking about why we buy things. The motivation behind it, is it intrinsic or extrinsic?
Meaning, are we buying for ourselves or for others?
Essentially, yeah. Are you buying something for your own personal fulfillment? Like maybe you do fly business class, but it's not to show off. It's genuinely for comfort on a long flight because it helps your health. You arrive feeling better.
Or investing in, say, travel or a course that genuinely expands your horizons?
Right. That's intrinsic. Versus, are you buying something mainly to impress other people, to project a certain image, keep up with the Joneses, meet some external expectation?
Like maybe that flashy car or the huge house when you're young.
Exactly. The expert we're referencing, he shared this really honest story about buying a country mansion when he was only 23.
Oh, 23.
Yeah, and he explicitly called it a stupid decision based on extrinsic motivations. It looked impressive, sure, but it was way outside the city, super isolating.
So not practical.
Not at all. He said none of his friends ever came out to visit. He'd get home late to this massive place, tennis court and all, totally alone. It actually cut him off from his social life, which was something he really valued.
That story really hits home. It makes you ask, does the reason you buy something actually affect how happy it makes you?
It absolutely has to, doesn't it? If you pour money into something that doesn't genuinely resonate with you, with your inner self, but is just for show or obligation,
Then that money isn't really building your rich life.
right, it's maybe building someone else's idea of what your life should look like. And think about the opportunity cost, like he points out. If you spend a ton on something that brings you zero real joy,
That's money that could have gone somewhere else.
exactly, a memorable trip, maybe boosting your investments for future freedom, it's a huge cost people just don't factor in.
Okay, so understanding the why behind spending is key. But to even get there, you need some basic financial literacy, right? You called it the language of money.
Yes, absolutely. It's a fundamental skill, but it's one we, as a society, weirdly neglect. Think about driving. We all learn the rules of the road, basic mechanics.
Sure, it's standard.
But with money, so many people lack even the foundational knowledge. They might not know what percentage of their income they're saving or investing.
Or even have a rough idea of when they might hit certain milestones, like having 100K or a million in investment.
Exactly. And maybe even more importantly, they often don't know what hitting that number would actually allow them to do. What's the point of $1 million if you don't know what it's for in your rich life?
That's a great point. So how do people get fluent without getting overwhelmed? You mentioned it's not about crazy spreadsheets.
Definitely not. The expert suggests focusing on just 4 core financial numbers. Keep it simple. First up, fixed costs.
Okay, what falls into that?
This is your essentials. Rent or mortgage, any debt payments, student loans, credit cards, groceries, car payments, utilities, the must-pays.
And what's the target range for that?
Ideally, you want this to be somewhere between 50% to 60% of your take-home pay. If you're in that zone or even below it, you're generally in a good spot. Your core commitments are manageable.
Okay, 50-60% for fixed costs. What's number 2?
Number 2 is savings. This should be around 5% to 10% of your take-home. This is for building that crucial emergency fund, your safety net, or maybe saving for shorter-term goals like a down payment on a car or education costs.
Got it. Emergency fund and near-term goals. Number 3.
Number 3 is investments. This is where, as the expert says, real wealth is created. Aiming for 5% to 10% of take-home here is a good start.
But potentially more if you can swing it.
Oh, absolutely. The more you can consistently put towards investments, especially earlier on, the more powerful the long-term growth. This is your money working for you.
Makes sense. And the last one, my favorite, I bet.
Huh. Almost certainly. Number 4 is guilt-free spending. This is the fun money. Typically, this should be somewhere between 20% to 35% of your take-home pay.
And this is for?
Anything you want.
Right.
Cocktails, that cool jacket, treating friends, hobbies, travel, whatever brings you joy, spend it here without a fret of guilt.
I like that. So just knowing these 4 percentages gives you a snapshot.
A powerful snapshot. The expert says, just take 15 minutes, estimate these numbers for yourself, jot them down. Suddenly, you see where your money is actually going. You see your priorities reflected back at you.
And you can spot mismatches, right? Where your spending isn't aligned with that rich life you want.
Precisely. These 4 numbers tell a story, your story, what you truly value.
And having that clarity helps bust that myth we started with, the if I just earned more idea.
Absolutely demolishes it because
Yeah.
you see the numbers, you understand the allocation, and you realize, like, the statistic shows 25% of people earning over $100K still living paycheck to paycheck, that income alone isn't the solution.
It's about managing what you have.
It's always about managing what you have intentionally. You could double your income tomorrow, but without changing your habits or systems, you could easily end up in the exact same stressed out spot a year later. Lifestyle creep is real.
Okay, that's a tough but necessary pill to swallow. Speaking of tough truths and ingrained beliefs, let's talk about homeownership, that American dream.
Ah, yes, the house, the white picket fence. It's been drilled into us for decades, hasn't it? Almost like financial gospel. Owning a house is always the bud investment, the ultimate sign of success.
But the expert challenges this pretty strongly.
Very strongly. He goes so far as to say owning a house can actually be a very bad financial decision for a lot of people.
Wow, okay. Why? Because we always hear these stories. My grandma bought her house for X and sold it for Y million.
Right. Those anecdotes are powerful, but they're dangerously simplistic. They conveniently leave out a ton of hidden costs that chew away at that supposed profit.
You mean like maintenance?
Exactly. What our source calls the phantom costs. Think about
Okay.
grandma's house over 50 years. New roof, probably. New furnace or AC, likely. Kitchen updates, bathroom renos, landscaping. It adds up to potentially hundreds of thousands.
And that's usually not factored into the profit.
Never. Nor is inflation's impact properly considered. And the huge one people miss, opportunity costs.
Opportunity cost of the down payment.
Yes. That big chunk of cash you put down what if, instead of tying it up in the house, you'd invested it in something simple, like an S&P 500 index fund.
Earning market returns year after year.
Compounding. You're losing out on potentially significant growth over decades. Then add mortgage interest, often way more than the principal property taxes that always go up, insurance, and then
The cost of selling it.
massive transaction costs, agent commissions, closing costs, staging. Easily 5–8% of the sale price wiped out right there. When you actually add all that up, the real return often looks much, much less impressive. Sometimes it's even negative in real terms.
So the expert's own experience, comparing renting versus owning.
Yeah, in expensive cities like New York, he calculated it would cost him literally more than twice as much each month to own an equivalent place compared to renting it.
Twice as much.
Yeah. So he rented, took that difference, the money he would have spent on ownership costs like maintenance, extra interest, taxes, and invested it.
And he came out ahead.
Consistently made significantly more through investing the difference. It proves the point. You have to run your own numbers for your specific situation. Don't just follow the cultural script.
Which really makes you rethink renting, doesn't it? So many people feel like renters are somehow failing.
It's such a shame, that guilt. Renting is a perfectly valid, often financially superior choice, especially, as the expert suggests, if you don't see yourself staying put for at least 10 years.
Why 10 years?
That's his rough estimate for the break-even point to recoup those big transaction costs of buying and selling. If you're likely to move sooner for work or life changes, renting usually makes more financial sense.
And it offers lifestyle flexibility too, right?
Huge flexibility. You're not tied down. You can easily move for a better job. Move where the action is, as he puts it. Or follow a relationship, or just explore a new city without the agony and expense of selling a house.
Yeah, selling a house is a massive undertaking.
It really is. So the message is, run the numbers, weigh the finances against your lifestyle needs, and absolutely do not feel guilty if renting is the right choice for you. It often is.
Okay, but just to be clear, real estate isn't always bad. Like, investment properties.
Right, good clarification. Owning real estate specifically for rental income can be a smart part of a diversified portfolio, and this is a big but, you have to run the numbers like a true investor, ensuring positive cash flow.
How do you do that?
He advises adding at least 50% to your estimated mortgage payment to realistically cover repairs, maintenance, potential vacancies, property management, interest fluctuations, all the landlord
It's
costs.
a business calculation.
Exactly. It separates buying a place because you want to live there from analyzing a property purely as a cash flowing investment. Most people blur those lines, and that's where they get into trouble.
That analytical rigor, it seems like that applies to investing in general, moving beyond real
Right.
estate.
Yeah.
You mentioned the path to wealth is often unsexy.
Huh. Yes, the unsexy path. Because building real, lasting wealth, it's not usually about thrilling high stakes trades or being some kind of market genius.
It's more like watching paint dry.
That's the perfect analogy. It's about discipline, consistency, patience. It is inherently boring, and that's precisely why it's so effective. It goes against our craving for excitement, for instant results, for those get-rich-quick stories.
So boring is best.
Yeah.
What does that look like in practice? We hear about the S&P 500 a lot.
Right. For anyone unfamiliar, the S&P 500 is just a basket of about 500 of the biggest U.S. companies. Think Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. You own a tiny slice of all of them.
And historically, it performs well.
Very consistently over the long term. Average annual returns are around 10–11% over the last century or so. Even
Yeah.
after you factor in inflation, you're looking at maybe 7–8% average real return. That's the engine of long-term wealth growth. You're just participating in the overall economy's expansion.
So how does someone easily invest in that without becoming an expert stock picker?
The simplest way, especially for beginners or people who want a set-it-and-forget-it approach, is target date funds.
How do those work?
Super simple. You pick one fund based roughly on when you think you'll retire. So if you're planning to retire around 2065, you'd look for a target date 2065 fund from a low-cost provider like Vanguard, Fidelity, or Schwab.
And the fund does the work.
Pretty much. It automatically diversifies your money across thousands of stocks and bonds globally. And the really clever part, it automatically adjusts the mix over time, becoming more conservative, shifting more towards bonds as you get closer to that 2065 date.
Because your risk tolerance changes as you get older.
Exactly. It manages that glide path for you. Usually these are funds of funds, meaning they hold other low-cost index funds inside them, keeping overall costs very low.
Okay, that sounds genuinely easy. What's the key to making it work long term?
Automation. This is the secret sauce. Once you pick your brokerage and your fund, you set up automatic monthly transfers. Money goes straight from your checking account into your investment account every single month without you doing anything.
Like paying a bill, but to yourself.
Even easier, as the expert says, easier than brushing your teeth, because once it's set up, it's done. No daily decisions, no effort. It just happens.
And that consistency combined with
The power of compounding. That steady, automatic investing month after month, year after year, lets compounding work its magic. That's how real wealth gets built. You don't even need to look at it that often. Maybe check in every few months. The less you fiddle, generally the better.
compounding. The
And
eighth wonder of the world, right? We make that more tangible.
definitely. I really recommend playing with an online investment calculator. MoneyChimp is a simple one. But let's paint a picture. Imagine starting young, say age 16, with just $5,000. Then, let's say you manage to invest, on average, $30,000 per year throughout your career, and we'll use a conservative, historically reasonable average return of 7% per year.
30K a year, 7% return. What happens?
The numbers get pretty staggering over time. By age 30, you could be looking at around $133,000. Keep going to age 40. Maybe $336,000.
Wow.
Age 50, potentially $736,000. And if you stick with it until a standard retirement age, say 65, you could realistically be looking at somewhere between $12 million and $17 million.
That's credible, just from consistent, boring investing.
It highlights the key ingredients, right? Start early if you can, invest consistently, aggressively, and this is crucial, keep your costs incredibly low. It's not about timing the market, it's about time in the market.
It makes you think about someone like Warren Buffett.
Perfect example. Our expert points out that over 99% of Buffett's massive wealth was generated after his 60th birthday.
Seriously, 99% after 60.
Yeah, not because he suddenly found some magic formula late in life. It was just the sheer power of compounding working over 60-plus years of consistent investing. Patience and time.
Okay, you mentioned keeping costs low is critical. Why are fees such a big deal? It seems counterintuitive, like paying more should get you better results.
It really does seem that way, but in investing, it's the opposite. Paying higher fees absolutely does not get you better returns. It actively reduces your returns. The math is shocking.
That's shocking.
Okay, that seemingly small 1% annual fee that some financial advisors charge, over a lifetime of investing, that can eat up around 28% of your total potential return.
28%, just from a 1% fee.
Yep. And if the fee is 2%, which isn't uncommon with some advisors or actively managed funds, you could lose over 55% of your total nest egg to fees. Millions of dollars, potentially, just gone.
That's highway robbery, basically.
Oh, yeah.
Violently happening.
It's a silent wealth killer. That's why low cost is paramount. Unlike buying a fancy watch where price might signal quality in investing, higher fees just mean less money in your pocket.
Which relates to what you said about investment apps. They should be ugly.
Huh, yeah. His point is they shouldn't be designed like games. They shouldn't encourage you to constantly check your balance or make frequent trades or feel that dopamine hit. Investing isn't entertainment.
Is watching paint dry.
Exactly. Long-term, patient, maybe a little boring. If your app makes you feel like you need to be constantly doing something, it's probably encouraging the wrong behavior.
That really clarifies the difference between long-term investing and short-term trading.
A crucial distinction. Investing is the slow, steady, automated approach. Trading is often about frequent buying and selling, trying to time the market, chasing quick profits.
Which usually doesn't end well for most individuals.
Statistically, no. It becomes like gambling. And a huge mistake people make is treating their long-term investment account like a savings account they can just dip into whenever.
Right, it's meant for decades down the road.
Precisely. Not for covering this month's unexpected bill or jumping on the latest hot tip.
Speaking of hot tips, that brings us to risk. Things like crypto. Why do people get drawn into that?
Well, the allure is obvious, right? The promise of huge, life-changing returns, sometimes seemingly overnight. Plus, there's this narrative, especially among younger folks, that traditional investing diversification index funds was boring, too slow for old people.
But the reality for many wasn't quite the dream.
Far from it. Countless people lost enormous amounts of money, often money they couldn't afford to lose. And you rarely hear about those losses, do you?
No, people tend to broadcast the wins, hide the losses.
Exactly. Shame, ego, it keeps the failures quiet. So the expert's advice here is very balanced, very disciplined.
What's the approach?
If and only if you have your core, diversified, low-cost, long-term portfolio solidly established and consistently funded, then you can consider allocating a tiny percentage,
How tiny?
like 1% to maybe 5% at most of your total investment capital towards speculative things. That could be crypto or an individual stock you believe in, maybe a small investment in a friend's business.
But that's clearly separated.
Completely separate. It's designated as fun money, play money, for learning, for experimenting. It is absolutely not part of your foundational wealth-building strategy. That stays boring and consistent.
Got it. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Always. And while investing is one huge piece, the other side of the coin is increasing your earning power, right? Boosting your income.
Because investing $100 a month is good, but investing $1,000 is better.
Exactly. They work together. Let's take a practical example he uses. A personal trainer wants to double their income. How do they do it smartly, not just by working twice the hours?
Okay, what are the levers?
First, get more clients strategically. Ask existing happy clients for referrals, maybe offer an incentive. Offer compelling free intro sessions to convert prospects. Don't just wait for them to show up.
Makes sense. What else?
Second, increase the lifetime value of each client. Don't just sell training sessions, package and higher value services, maybe personalized meal plans. Maybe partner with a healthy meal delivery service and take a small cut. These add-ons boost revenue per client significantly.
Without necessarily taking more of the trainer's time.
Right. Third, increase how long clients stay. Offer discounts for longer commitments, 6 months, a year, instead of just month to month. Maximize profit from every hour, every client relationship.
That's smart tactical stuff.
Yeah.
But there's an even bigger picture concept. These discontinuous jumps.
Yeah, this is more advanced but powerful.
Yeah.
It's about strategically placing your existing skills where they are most valuable and, crucially, most scarce. It's not just about getting a 5% raise.
How does that work? Give me an example.
Okay, think of a skilled social media marketer in the consumer goods industry. That skill is pretty common, valuable but not rare. But take that same person with the same skills and put them in, say, the biotech industry.
Or maybe they don't have many people who understand both science and social media.
Exactly. Suddenly, that identical skill set is incredibly rare and valuable for communicating complex science. The expert cites a real case where someone made that move and got offered $8 million in stock options.
Wow. Not because they got smarter, but because their skills were in higher demand there.
Precisely. Scarcity equals value. Another example. A graphic designer doing nightclub flyers for maybe $50 a pop. Saturated market, low value.
Okay.
Same designer, same core skills, moves their focus to designing for high-end luxury brands, maybe in a different market like Dubai. Suddenly, they could be commanding $50,000 per project.
A discontinuous jump.
Exactly. It's about strategically thinking. Where are my unique talents most highly valued? And positioning yourself there. It's a game changer compared to just asking for small incremental raises.
These ideas really show how building a rich life is about more than just money mechanics. It's psychology, strategy, relationships.
It's totally interconnected, which leads nicely into these principles our expert outlines for living a consciously chosen life. He has 10 of them. We should probably touch on some key ones.
Yeah, let's do that. What's number one?
Rule number 1, always have 1 year of emergency funds, liquid, in savings.
1 full year. That's more than the typical advice of 3-6 months.
It is. It's conservative, but it provides incredible peace of mind. It means almost any emergency job loss, health issue won't completely derail you or force you into bad debt.
Okay, peace of mind. What's rule 2?
Rule 2, save 10%, invest 20% of your gross annual income. Emphasis on gross. It forces that pay yourself first habit and ensures aggressive investment for future growth.
Save 10, invest 20. Got it. Rule 3.
Pay cash for large expenses,
Yeah.
especially emotionally charged ones like engagement rings, big weddings, maybe dream vacations. Save up for them.
Avoid starting marriage or taking a big trip burdened by debt.
Exactly. It removes so much potential stress. Forces you to be intentional about those big spends.
Okay. Rule 4 sounds interesting. It's about things you shouldn't question spending on.
Yes, never question spending on books, appetizers, health, or donating to a friend's charity fundraiser.
Appetizers. That one jumps out. Why appetizers?
It's symbolic, right? For him, maybe growing up, money was tight. Ordering an appetizer felt like a huge indulgence, maybe forbidden. So now, as an adult, being able to just order one without thinking about it, that's a small taste of the rich life, overcoming that scarcity mindset.
I like that. And books.
Just buy the book, if
Yeah.
you're even slightly interested. The cost is tiny compared to the potential impact of one idea changing your thinking or your life.
And health, obviously crucial.
The most crucial foundation. Investing in your health, physical, mental, is the highest ROI investment you can possibly make. Everything else depends on it.
Makes total sense. What about rule 5? Business class flights.
Yeah, his personal rule. Business class on flights over 4 hours. He says it came from being curious, why were people paying so much more? He realized it wasn't just status. It was often for real benefits, arriving rested, better health, comfort. It became a conscious choice for him, a value.
Okay. Rule 6. Buy the best, keep it long.
Quality over quantity. Focus on well-made things that last, like his 17-year-old car or durable clothing. It's often more economical and sustainable in the long run than constantly buying cheap, disposable stuff.
Rule 7 loops back to health and adds education.
Yes. No limit on spending on health or education. These are core investments in yourself. They pay dividends forever. Lifelong learning, staying healthy, non-negotiables, if you value them, your spending should reflect that.
Rule 8 is about who you work with.
Earn enough so you can choose to work only with people you genuinely respect and like. It's about intentionally curating your environment, even within a big company, finding the right team, the right boss. It massively impacts your quality of life.
Rule 9 seems vital. Spend time outside the spreadsheets.
Absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Once your automation is set up, those automatic investments and savings, you should be spending maybe less than an hour a month actually managing your money.
Because the rich life isn't lived in Excel.
Exactly. It's lived through experiences, relationships, leisure, pursuing interests. Let the system run, then go live your life.
Huh.
Don't get trapped in endless optimization.
And the final one, Rule 10, is a big one.
Maybe the biggest. Marry the right person. He argues it's arguably the most consequential financial and relational decision you'll ever make.
That's powerful. And it leads right into how couples handle money, which is often poorly.
Often very poorly. The common pattern is that money only gets discussed when there's a problem, right? A big bill arrives, or someone's upset about spending, that she spends too much at Target, cliche. It's reactive and conflict-driven.
So what's the alternative?
Proactive communication. regular, scheduled money talks. And crucially, he suggests starting these talks with appreciation. Honey, I really appreciate how you handle X. It changes the whole tone.
And transparency is key, too.
Absolutely. Partners need to know each other's full financial picture, debts, assets, income, spending habits. No secrets. It builds trust, especially as things get serious.
What about prenups? They often feel awkward or negative.
He reframes them, not as predicting failure, but as a practical tool for clarity, especially protecting assets brought into the marriage. It's about fairness and transparency from the start. His advice: talk about it openly with your partner first, explain your intentions, don't just hand them a document and blame the lawyers.
That open conversation might reveal different underlying views about money, too.
Definitely. You might find one partner sees money primarily as growth and opportunity, while the other sees it as safety and security. These core beliefs, often shaped by childhood.
Like hearing we can't afford it all the time.
Exactly. That can lead to adult guilt about any kind of spending, even when you can afford it. Or someone from an affluent background might spend freely without thinking, clashing with a partner who prioritizes saving. Understanding those deep-seated money meanings is vital for resolving conflicts.
Are there other influences like gender or background?
There can be observed patterns, though they're not universal. Sometimes men might lean towards more aggressive investing, women might use words like safety more. But socioeconomic background, how you were raised, like being told be seen, not heard, might make someone less comfortable talking openly about finances. These factors are often just as, if not more, powerful.
This whole conversation, it really paints a picture of what it takes to live that rich life. Are there common traits you see in people who successfully do this?
It's interesting. One unobvious trait he highlights is that successful people are often really good at multiple things.
Not just hyper-focused on one area.
Right. He gives an example of a Nobel Prize winner in chemistry who was also published in music and known as a great parent. It counters that myth that you have to sacrifice everything else to excel at one thing. These people often show discipline, preparation, long-term thinking across different parts of their lives.
Consistency in habits, maybe?
Exactly. Transferable skills and mindsets.
And on the flip side, any warning signs?
Yeah.
Traits of people who tend to struggle more.
Yeah, a few. One is being surrounded by people who subtly undermine their ambitions. You know, the "why do you need to do that?" or "who do you think you are?" crowd.
Crabs in a bucket mentality.
Sort of. Another is chronic impulsivity, a real lack of long-term perspective. Ask them about their 5 or 10-year plan for anything.